New tonight, for the first time on record, the white population in the United States has declined. Just released data from the 2020 census shows the white population in America is down 8.6% from 2010. So just think about this context, okay? It's the first time it declines, and it declines by 8.6%. I mean, that's stunning. It's huge. So now the white population is 57.8% of the population. The Hispanic population grew by 23%, responsible for more than half of the entire country's population growth. More than half coming from Hispanics. Now, the population overall increased by more than 62 million across the country. And in California, the Hispanic population became the largest racial or ethnic group in the state for the first time, now making up 39% of the state's population. So obviously it's not a majority, but it's the biggest single group. So this is as the data shows much of America's population growth was in the South and West. That, of course, is not a surprise. And this data is crucial because it's going to be used to redraw the district lines for congressional districts before next year's midterm election, right? And it determines, right, the political future of the country. Out front now, elections guru Dave Wasserman, who is the U.S. House editor of the nonpartisan Cook Political Report, Maria Cardona, former DNC communications director, and, of course, our own Van Jones, former special advisor to President Obama, among many other things. So, Dave, let me start with you. You've gone through the data and the numbers that just came out. What was the big takeaway for you?
Aaron, this is a country that continues to get more urban and more diverse. Non-Hispanic whites were just 57.8% of the population in this census. That's 2 points lower than the pre-census estimates suggested. It's 6 points lower than it was in the 2010 census. And the Latino undercount that a lot of Democrats and advocacy groups feared heading into this census as a result of the chilling effect from the Trump administration, it didn't materialize in the data that we saw today. In fact, Hispanics were 18.7% of the U.S. population, which is even a tenth of a point higher than the benchmark estimates suggested. That will keep more power in urban areas of Texas and California. More good news for Democrats were that the counts from big cities like Chicago and New York came in a bit higher than the estimates suggested. And those are states where Democrats are really hoping to draw the lines in their favor. Now, we're moving into a critical phase here, and that's redistricting. And that's where Republicans hold a net advantage when it comes to redrawing the political boundaries for the next decade. They could gain between 0 and 10 seats thanks to their advantage in Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas.
Wow.
And keep in mind, they only need 5 seats to take back House control in 2022.
All right. So Maria, when we talk about things that stand out here, of course, obviously the drop in the white population, it stands out hugely, but so does the growth in the Hispanic population and where the growth happened, right? A lot of it in the South. Texas gaining 4 million residents in the last decade. Nearly half of those residents were Hispanic. But I just want to challenge the assumption here that this is just all going to be good for Democrats, who, by the way, have failed to turn Texas blue. And, we've heard about that campaign. It's going to happen. It can happen. It has not happened. So all this Hispanic growth that we are seeing, is it really just good for Democrats, or could it actually be a gift for the GOP?
I actually think, Aaron, it's good for the country, because I think diversity is good for the country. The more diverse this country is, the better it is for our economy, the better it is for our policies. Yep. Frankly, the better it is for our politics. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a fight, because there will be a fight. To your question as to which party this is going to be better for, that depends on the parties. I agree with you. It should not be an assumption that this is going to be good for Democrats. Demographics is not destiny. But I do think what it does is that it will embolden Democrats to fight very hard, especially, like you said, in Texas. Even though we have not been able to turn Texas blue, we have been able to come very close. And these new numbers, these growth numbers, will really give us a chance to continue to fight. But we have to have a message that attracts the Latino population, the multiracial population. Aaron, this country now, the under 18 population is majority non-white. That is jaw-dropping numbers to add to the ones that you focused on at the very beginning.
Right. So Van, the broader context here, of course, is that there are some who are deeply concerned and upset about this. So let me just give an example here of Tucker Carlson, who has repeatedly used rhetoric like this on Fox News.
The Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. Demographic change is the key to the Democratic Party's political ambitions. In order to win and maintain power, Democrats plan to change the population of the country. This is the administration bringing felons, violent criminals, into our country on purpose. Why would you do something like that? What they're doing is bringing in people they think will vote for them.
Okay. So Van, just to make the point, obviously, of course, nobody's violent felons are not accounting for the growth here of Hispanic population or any others. Okay. For parts of the country, though, this argument holds water, right? And the reason we know that is because he keeps doing it again and again and again, right? It's resonating with some people. How come?
Mm-hmm. Well, look, change is hard. And when things change, some people can jump on that and demagogue. The reality is nobody is coming to the United States to vote for Democrats or Republicans. They're coming to the United States to get jobs and to vote at all in some cases. And it's the Republican Party that is it's a Republican Party that is driving the Latino community into the Democratic Party's arms. We're happy to take them. But honestly, you got people who are coming from countries where they've had bad experiences with socialism. You have people coming here with a strong work ethic, big faith background, Catholics. You have to work hard as a Republican Party to repel this many voters who some of them naturally should be voting for you. So it's not that the Democrats are bringing people here to vote. It's people are coming here to work, and the Republicans have been so nasty and hostile, they're literally driving away voters that they could have. This demographic change could help either party or neither party, but it's helping Democrats because of Republicans.
Aaron,
go ahead, Maria.
If I could just add, to your point, I think we should all go into these next several years with eyes wide open. Tucker Carlson is making an argument that a lot of people are eating up and will eat up. Donald Trump's rise and his popularity within the Republican Party and in this country is still based on white resentment of the kind of demographic change that today is underscored more than at any other time in our country. And so what I hope, though I haven't seen, is that Republicans will actually look at this diversity as a positive for the country and look at the politics and the policies that we're going to need to continue to be number one in the world. Because if we have the growth of under 18 or the population under 18 right now that is majority non-white, that means that the future of this country, the future leaders of this country, what this country will be like has to reflect the policies that help those populations, and then will help America as a whole.
So Dave, let me ask you, it's interesting, to the point that Maria's making, right? Under 18, whites are in the minority. So obviously the fact that whites are still in the absolute majority is because older people still tend to trend white. I give that context, basic math here, just to set up this quiz for our viewers. What is the fastest growing metro area in the United States? Haha, definitely not New York. We all know that. But it's actually a retirement community. Tell me, Dave, about what's standing out to you.
Yeah, so look, Georgia is down to 50.1% non-Hispanic white. North Carolina, it's down to the high 50s. And so you see this head of steam of demographic change that isn't necessarily dooming Republicans. We saw actually the irony in 2020 of Trump's claims about election fraud that were false in Democratic cities was that he actually made the biggest strides with a lot of non-white voters in a lot of those urban counties. Now, the news from the census, though, is that it's those urban areas which are still heavily Democratic that have gained population. Most rural counties in the country, which are predominantly white, lost population. That's on the whole good news for Democrats, but redistricting and gerrymandering still favors Republicans.
And Van, a final word to you. 4 years since the deadly white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, and we get the latest census data, and we see the diversity of this country, but yet still the deep split.
Yeah, well, I still don't think the country has recovered from that day. Seeing Nazis march in America, President Trump's response disappointed a lot of people, shocked a lot of people. Some of the stuff he said was taken out of context, but he still was not able to find his footing and reassure people, and we haven't recovered. And the reality is, America is the greatest country in the world because we get to cheat and steal talent from everywhere. We got the smartest people, the hardest working people from all around the world come to be on our team, and that is the secret to our success. We are cutting our own noses off to leave all this talent to compete against us outside. We should welcome everybody here. That's what Reagan talked about. That's what George H.W. Bush talked about. Republicans should be talking about that, and if they don't want to, Democrats will.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.